Transportation Committee of March 12th to order. Roll call, please.
Here.
Here. Here.
Here.
Here. Here.
Here. Here.
Here. We do have a quorum. What is your pleasure on the minutes of February 18th?
So move. Support.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed? And the motion is carried. We'll move on to informational items. What is your pleasure on the transit and the airport operations?
Move they be placed on file.
Second.
Is there any discussion on either? Hearing none, roll call.
You can have a roll call if she wants one.
Can have one.
Well, it isn't necessary. I got a little confused. That's okay. All in favor signify by saying yes.
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 All opposed? The motion is carried. We're down to public comment. Is there anyone who wished to speak on an agenda item? Seeing none, we'll move on. We'll move on to items for consideration. The first one being TR 20-0320 to approve the First Amendment to the original lease agreement with SkyWest Airlines.
So moved.
Support.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying yes.
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 All opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move on to TR 20-0303. Approve acceptance of grant offers for funding the airport's fiscal year 2021 capital improvement projects.
So moved.
Support.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying yes.
Yeah. Yes.
All opposed? The motion is carried. We'll move on to TR 20-0304 to authorize acceptance of proposal from Light and Bruning to provide the parking access and revenue control system for the airport.
So move. Support.
Is there any discussion on the motion?
I do have some discussion. We tabled this last time, and can you tell me if the bids came in lower or higher than the previous bids?
Bob Lukens, Community Development Director. I believe, and I'm not sure, Commissioner, but I believe that when this was tabled, there was a single bid from Light and Bruning, and I believe it was $139,000, so it has gone down slightly.
Great, thank you very much.
I have a question.
Commissioner Scola?
Bob, do you have any idea when they'll be installed?
Weather permitting, as soon as possible. There's a few things that we have to work out regarding logistics to prepare and get ready for the installation, but as soon as possible.
Will it'll have like a control box inside the terminal where you can...
It will, yes, sir. One inside, and you'll also be able to pay by credit card on the way out. The one inside the terminal will accept cash too.
Will you still be able to push a button and talk to Rita? If you
Yes, you will, if you'd like.
Any further questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed? The motion is carried. Move on to TR 20-0305 to authorize MATS to publish public notice regarding the fiscal year 2020 federal operating and capital assistance application and authorize staff to execute the grant application if there is no request for public hearing.
So move.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion on the motion?
I'd like to be
Yes.
confirmed. We are asking for a public hearing, correct?
No.
No.
Yeah, it says unless.
It says to publish a public notice regarding, I would like a public hearing on that. I think the people deserve to be able to So I just wondered if this is actually saying we're going to have a public hearing.
Jim,
If there's a request.
address that.
Jim Coons, Muskegon Area Transit System. So our normal process with this application and with our state application is to prepare the application, give the public an opportunity to see what the items are in there, and then if they desire us to hold a public hearing, we will do so. This would be published on April 3. There would be a 30-day period during which they could request one. If you want one, we can do one.
How would the people request one?
As instructed here, they would just send in written comments about the application or request a hearing by sending a letter to me. At Matt's
How many
for that.
people have to do that for you to hold one?
One.
Oh, okay.
Anybody,
So couldn't we just have a public hearing just so we don't even have to worry about that at all?
If the board would like us to have a public hearing on this application, we can. We would be clear that the topic of the hearing is this application, unless you want more hearing on other items at the same time.
And there would be, we would get that information prior to that hearing, correct?
You would get what information prior to the
Of
hearing?
what the application is there to cover.
Well, it's already stated on page 16 of your agenda what the items are in the application.
I have a question.
We're asking for funding for 4 different items.
Jim, even if you had a public hearing, you'd have to do the public notice and do the 30 days, correct?
Yeah, so we typically will do a 30-day public comment I'm sorry.
Public notice requiring the,
Yeah, I mean, we put it out for 30 days for any comments, but
and
if
that's
a
what we're
hearing is required.
that's what we're authorizing now, correct?
To put it out for comment,
Will you come back to us before the end of that 30 days and ask us if we want a public hearing?
no, unless somebody asks. So we're basically saying this application is ready to go to the federal government, and we're putting it out, so if anybody wants to comment, we can hold a hearing on it, or we can go ahead and execute the application.
That's fine.
Jim, in the past, did we have these words in there, authorized mats? Do we just normally?
This is the
authorize
same way we've done it every year.
Noticed it in that context. So what is your pleasure? You want it in there?
It's fine with me. This
I'm
is
happy with it
normal.
the way it is.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, all in favor signify by saying yes.
yes.
All opposed? The motion is carried. Well, to TR 200306 to authorize MATS to issue an RFP for a 2-year period of ad hoc engine-related diagnostic and maintenance services for the diesel and the CNG buses.
So moved. Support.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Here
I had a question. We're seeking bids on this, correct?
That's correct. It would be a request for proposals. So it's based on not just price alone, but they would provide other information about their services.
Do we have an estimate on what this might cost us?
Over a 2-year period, we're going to believe it's just under $150,000 maximum. Would be our expectation.
So did we compensate for that in our request application?
This is in our budget, we have expenditure line items for maintenance services. So this would be just doing the procurement process we need in order to have a vendor in place for that.
Commissioner Hovey, right?
Yeah, what do we do now?
We have had one in place for the last 2 years. The current vendor happens to be Cummins Bridgeway in Grand Rapids, and that was a 2-year contract that's about to expire. So according to our federal rules, we have to make sure that we do these procurements.
Have we not been happy with our current provider?
We're perfectly happy with them, but their 2-year term is expired. And we have to follow the procurement processes to give vendors opportunity.
Skolnick?
Jim, this would be for if a transmission went out or something.
This is primarily engine related. anything from diagnosing a vehicle that won't start that we can't identify. It could be rebuilding an engine, all those types of things. Major work that we just don't have the tools or equipment or staffing for.
Okay.
Mr. Hughes?
Jim, I wonder if are you asking us to eliminate the only 2 staff we have that are maintenance?
No,
Okay.
no, our staff are primarily preventive maintenance,
I just
oil
wanna make sure
changes.
that. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Laring?
So I'm actually feeding off a question that Commissioner Nash asked. It's my understanding we don't have any money in the budget that the county actually provides for mats. We didn't, in our fiscal budget, we didn't provide funding for you. So this issue isn't coming out of the county funds, it's coming out of the mats funds, correct?
Well, this really isn't a funding matter. This is a procurement matter. So, I mean, we have to maintain the buses. We have to continue doing that. But in order to do so, this would be following the proper procurement procedures to have a vendor available to us.
Correct. You have to keep the buses running. We don't.
I am you. I am part of the county.
Correct.
Sorry.
But MATS has to keep not necessarily the Muskegon County Board of Commissioners is not responsible for the upkeep of maintenance of the buses. We're not spending money on MATS, if I understand this correctly.
Well,
The general fund is the idea is that it's an enterprise department. Enterprise funds are paying for this. If for any reason they run short, then the general fund.
Well, they have a $500,000 budget shortfall for the year 2020. That's what they projected last year. So right now, when we passed our budget, there was no money allocated in our budget for MATS. That's one of the reasons I remember it, because I agreed to it, because there was no funding for MATS. So we're making I am not trying to debate the issue. If you want to hire a different contractor to provide services, that's fine. I just want to stipulate that the county's not paying for it. MATS is paying for it.
the payments to whatever vendor is chosen for this would be paid by the MATS fund.
Thank you.
Commissioner?
And I
Nash?
guess that's why I was following up on my question. Did we have any increases in our application that would help compensate for that excess expense?
Again, Commissioner, I don't think this is an extra expense. This is just continuing to provide maintenance on our fleet. But in order to have a vendor that we're sending federal money through to, we have to procure those vendor services with competitive processes. And the last time we did it, we only had a 2-year contract that's about to expire. So for us to make any
Okay,
repairs.
so we have someone in place right now that's
Yes.
doing this.
Yes,
All right, so we're just looking. Okay,
we're re-upping,
never mind,
you know,
never mind.
reissuing a contract opportunity.
Are there any further questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed? The motion is carried. We'll move on to TR 200307 to approve a contract with the ARFF specialists to provide airport rescue and firefighting training and authorize the chair to execute MDOT's ARFF grant 2020-0348.
So move. Support.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Commissioner Hubby, right?
Yes, I'm assuming that we're not using PFAS for this anymore. Is there a substitute?
Bob Lukens, Community Development Director. They use water in this instance.
Oh, okay.
It's a contained type of vehicle that has gas, LP gas. It's a live burn.
And the opiate gas doesn't let the fire go out very easy, so it simulates it very well.
Are there further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed? The motion is carried. We'll move on to old business. Is there any old business to come before us? Any new business?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to make a motion for the board's consideration on MATS. The motion would be to leave 50% of all the buses off the road during this corona crisis. 1, for the safety of our riders during the national crisis. Number 2, reason one could be in being sanitized while one is on the road for the safety of the riders.
Is there support? Motion?
Support.
And it's open now for discussion. We have a support. Commissioner Scoley?
Uh, I understand, I think, your logic, but the I don't know if that's a good idea. I hope the people that need the buses need buses.
Yeah.
They got to get around, and it's not like there's 250 people on a bus. I understand what you're thinking, but the system, it already isn't like running. There's a limited number of buses running. I don't know. I think we're going to hurt people more than we're going to help them.
If it's only a consideration for a motion.
I
Yeah.
understand.
That, and I just Googled it, and it says here, as a direct result of the COVID-19, Americans are switching their travel habits from public transit to either staying home or relying more on their cars. Based on a public poll of 1,000 Americans, they found 48% feel that riding the public transit poses a high health risk due to the virus. I guess thinking about this, my concern would be that that is a very vulnerable population.
Right.
But they do need to be able to get somewhere. But do we really want to put them in a position that, I guess I'd like to ask Jim what kind of protocol you've put in place, if any, to combat this?
Well, first I'll say that, we're waiting on information as well as everybody else is. So I'm going to look to see what comes out of tomorrow's meeting as well as everybody, and see what the public health department wants for us to do and administration. I will say that for at least 10 years, since the last time there was a major sky falling issue, we've had hand sanitizer stations on the buses. We provide that so customers can take that matter into their own hands, so to speak, and feel comfortable with that. The drivers have access to sanitizing wipes. If they feel there's somebody that's exposing things to some degree, they have access to that, and they can wipe that down as they go through the day. On a daily basis, we have some crew, a couple of trustees, along with one of our staff that does cleaning. We're only able to get through a small number of buses every morning, but then also every evening when things come through, or at least 3 nights a week and Saturdays, we're able to try to wipe down buses as well. So as we look at what's being recommended, we'll try to redouble the efforts on wiping down surfaces. But again, also the individual to wash their hands, stay home, use hand sanitizer, etc. So that is where we are in terms of providing the amount of protection we can provide, and we'll keep watching for other opportunity to do so.
Move to table. I don't think we have enough information right now. I think we need to address this as soon as we have it, but I think it's too soon to know. This is a vulnerable population. They don't have cars. That's why they use the bus system here. It's not like we have no parking downtown. It's people that use the buses don't have cars, and they don't have the money to have a taxi either. I mean, some are complaining or describing to me that they even would have trouble with a $4 microtransit cost. So I think we keep it in mind. I respect your concern about this, but I think we need more information before we take that drastic a move. So I move to table.
Hughes?
Support that.
No, then we need to vote on that. I was just going to ask Jim. Jim, I was going to ask you, have you noticed a decrease in ridership at all?
Commissioner, honestly, I haven't looked at ridership over the last, 12 days.
Yeah.
February was up, but again, nobody was really looking at this issue at that point in time. So I will look back at that when I get back, and see if it appears there's any active decrease in ridership from
Thank
that.
you.
And we'll try to bring some more information tomorrow back at 4
I think
o'clock
that'd
on
be a
this
good
as
idea.
well.
That'll be good.
We just need to vote
Yes.
on the
I'll-
on the tabling motion.
There's a motion to table the
Mhm.
motion. Is there support?
Yes, there was
Yes,
support.
support.
Charles supported.
Are there any further questions?
So
Yes.
Sorry. I will say that some major metropolitan areas that depend on mass transit far more than we do are scheduling to shut down. New York City is talking about shutting down their subways, and New York City will grind to a halt without their subways. That's how seriously they're taking it in major metropolitan areas. So just be that what it may.
Okay, thank you. Is there any further discussion on the motion?
I just like
No,
to
no,
say,
no, no.
There is no
table.
discussion on the motion to table.
We have to vote on the table.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried.
A clarification, that's tabled till tomorrow during our emergency meeting?
I
can-
believe so. I'll bring
I
back more
can make
information.
that. I
Okay.
can add that.
Madam Chair, may I make another motion real quick?
Yes.
Could we make a friendly motion to our match director to figure out a solution for sanitizing the buses on a better than occasionally? I mean, especially with this going on right now.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor to make this more frequently to wipe the buses down.
Correct. To sanitize the buses.
Telling them how to do that
As director, let him decide the protocol.
Okay. All in favor of the motion signify by saying yes.
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 All opposed?
No,
No.
Let's make that a roll call.
what is the motion again?
To have the director come up with a better solution to sanitize the buses that best suits his schedule.
my concern, if I may, my concern is that we're getting into pretty much micromanaging what this is going on. We hired Mr. Coons to do this project, and I'm assuming that we can set a policy, but we can't tell him what to do as a board. We're a policy board. That's why I voted no.
Me too.
Yes, Zach?
So that's right. We are a policy board, and our policy Gary's recommending is for him to come up with a new policy to sanitize these buses. As Commissioner Hovey Wright mentioned, this is a vulnerable class of people, and that depend on our system. We have heard multiple complaints in some of these public hearings about how dirty these buses are. I've never ridden one, so I don't know, but I have heard lots of public comment that these buses are dirty. And we need a plan to sanitize them. I would have recommended, I'm not making the motion, but they need to be sanitized on a daily basis, particularly with this health crisis that's on the horizon.
Well, with that comment, I think that we just need to let the manager operate, and then we see what needs to be done. And if we have to change it, then we can. If that's okay with
Yeah, we're talking about tomorrow, so yeah.
Commissioner Nash.
Well, I was just going to say, I think it might be more proper just to make sure that we made a request to our director to make sure that extra precautions are taken and sanitation is happening. But I do think we got to be careful about, trying to micromanage our directors and what they're doing.
Exactly. Thank you.
Hence the words more frequent. He had
Correct.
said when he came up to the mic that he does occasionally.
Correct.
Occasional does not cut it with coronavirus.
And I think we all agree that they need to be sanitized more and better, especially at this time.
Thank you.
So we have a motion on the floor.
And you wanted a roll call.
Oh, could you repeat the motion, please?
Rita will repeat it.
Yeah, read it. Will.
We tabled the first motion.
No.
Right. Correct. That was that. Yep.
Find a better way to clean the buses more frequently.
In a nutshell.
And that was,
Okay.
Yes.
yes. And roll call, please.
Yes.
The word was we're demanding that he do it,
No.
or was a recommendation?
Requesting our director.
Okay, yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
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 No. The motion failed.
Can we change a vote? Can we change a vote?
No.
No.
Not after she says what it is.
Right.
Well, you can make a motion to reconsider, but
Let's not get too technical.
And I think we'll know more tomorrow. That the only reason
Yeah.
I voted no was because I think we'll know more tomorrow and be able to make a recommendation tomorrow that makes sense all around.
The whole point of my motions was just to bring alive, we have to be proactive as a board.
I agree.
And it was nothing meant to intimidate our director in any way, shape, or form, Mr. Coons.
Do we have any final board comments?
One, I did just get a note from Matt that said that several counties have shut things down, and if a county decides to shut down the whole thing or part of it, will we please let Mac know so that they can pass that out?
What whole thing? Bus service or
No,
anything?
I don't. I think they meant are you shutting down the treasurer's office, the clerk's
Oh,
office,
sure.
the courts, whatever? I think they would like that to know that.
Shutting the courts down.
So I can, the final board comments, right? Is that where we are right now?
Yep.
Okay, I just want to say this about, and I should have asked, Kathy Moore spoke at Rotary today. I mean, she was part of the program and she spoke about the virus. One of the things I should have asked and I didn't. So we don't have a cure for this at the moment. So why will it be over? I mean, okay, so all of a sudden there's no cases, but it's not going away. I don't understand how it ends until we have, hopefully they'll come up with something, but that's going to take a long time. I don't know.
Just another. Go ahead.
I have some partial answers because, again, I was watching the news all day. In China, it started New Year's Day, it went up dramatically, and then it started to taper down, I think, the end of February. So there's like a course that it takes, and I guess they're anticipating that there'll be a dramatic rise like right now, and then it'll taper off. But I don't know how that happens, except that it does with all other.
I believe as in most cases, this virus will be endemic forever. You're not going to get rid of it. It just works into the population as another little thing you have to deal with. But it's not going to, right now it's exploding because, number one, we don't know how many people have it.
Especially
And
not in the U.S.
and most cases of disease will do exactly what Commissioner Hubby Wright is saying. There will be a peak, it will taper off. The question is, when does it taper off?
Will it go away?
It's never going to go away.
Oh, yeah.
So I have another comment too.
Okay, Commissioner.
You have to wait a
Harry.
year for the vaccine.
In response to Commissioner Hovey Wright, China has tapered off, but they're probably, between China and Russia, are the only countries that are going to be able to cope with this because they can use methods that will never be acceptable in the United States. They have mass quarantines. They have shut their freeways down. They have put dump truck loads of dirt on the streets to keep Wuhan closed off. People do not come in and they are not back to work. They're only at 20% production. So this didn't go away. The news just quit coming out of China. They've shut their internet down. You
Oh.
can't get reporters in and out of there. We don't really know what is happening in China right now. So to use them as an example that this thing went away, their production supposedly is at 20%, but that's not hitting the docks. So we don't know what their true production is. They're just at 20% energy use right now.
That's we need to know.
Yeah, and just to add to that, that quarantine is very serious in China, and so they have a lot of law enforcement that are out making sure that that is happening. That's why I was questioning, if we're talking about quarantining people, how do we do that, and where do we get the manpower from? Because right now we just have enough to handle our jails and our road patrol. Where are we going to get the extra people to quarantine individuals at home? So it's a lot of questions to be asked, and it's a lot of responsibility. So we really need to get some answers before we just, jump too fast on this.
One more comment. So New York City asked the same question. How are we going to deal with this? They called in the National Guard. So I'm not suggesting that that's what we're doing, but this is a serious issue, and where it's loose, I think our county is going to be best served by quarantining the few individuals or the travelers that come in here. It will be safest if we keep it out. Once it's in our county, we're in trouble.
Last comment, ma'am.
I agree.
Commissioner Nash mentioned his daughter said hopefully in a month there's some kind of a temporary Band-Aid. Let's just all pray that happens.
Amen.
True.
Has a tendency to
Other
mutate.
comments? This has been an
The
interesting
virus
meeting.
is just a new strain.
Yes.
It's
I'll
a virus
entertain
that
a
it
motion to
mutates.
adjourn.
We've had Corona for the longest.
We go through the
So everybody
tough part.
stay informed.
Yeah, they're saying this is
They,
just a